Welcome to the Valhalla Filmcast, a show where normal guys talk about the films that they love. And here are your hosts, Bryce Thompson, Brian Hammond, and Cody Ryrie. Now get ready, because the show starts in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the Valhalla Filmcast. I'm Cody Ryrie, and I am here with Brian Hammond.
How's it going, guys?
And once again, we are Bryceless, but we're getting into Jason Bourne. This is the spoiler show, so if you have not seen the film, this is not where you want to be. Go back and look one episode earlier, and you'll find the spoiler-free review that we did. Let's just dive right into it. Brian, some of your specific things you liked, didn't like, what sticks out to you?
Okay, so I'm not the biggest fan of this type of movie. The Taken movies, I can barely sit through. Just the action, nonstop action. I find it, after a while, it just gets, I don't know if, it just gives me a headache. And after a while, I'm just like kind of about them. There were some things that I really liked about this one as opposed to Taken. And I have watched all the Bourne, minus the Legacy. I never saw that one, but and I liked them. I don't have a very great recollection of them, actual specific plot points. But, I felt like it did a good job of refreshing my memory good enough, at the beginning. My wife had a different reaction. She was kind of a little more confused by that. She kind of forgot more than I had, I guess. But I think that it did a good job setting up. If you have been invested in the rest of the films, then you'll know what's going on and all that. What I found most interesting about this movie, which is kind of unusual, the director Paul Greengrass, he kind of has, he comes from this cinema verite, documentary. He's big into that. That's how he got his start. And he also directed, Captain Phillips in United 93. Mm-hmm. So he really likes to pull from the headlines and pull from these different areas. And I really found the social media aspect of it the most interesting part of the whole thing. Mm. And that's not saying much because it was not touched upon that much.
It wasn't, no. Yeah.
It was a minor plot at best. And I kind of found that a lot more interesting. And I don't know if that's just, my leanings of what I enjoy to watch or what, but there were some major plot holes in it that I just shook my head, and I actually leaned over to my wife, and she said I was thinking the same thing. But that's my biggest pro, is that I liked how he pulled from the headlines. He used names like Snowden and, social media, obviously not Facebook or the big ones, but, something very similar with the same type of CEO persona. The thing that is shown the least in it, I found the most interesting. So that's my first thoughts.
That's I would agree with most of that. I liked, there's also my pros. At the beginning, they're in Greece, right? And they're in one of those austerity riots that happened when the Greeks got cut down by the Germans economically or whatever. And I was very impressed by the fact that as I was watching the movie, this goes back to what you were saying about Greengrass having this documentary background, it did not feel like a staged protest. It felt like they just dropped Matt Damon and Julia Stiles in the middle of a real protest. They didn't really do that, I don't think, but it was staged.
It wasn't even filmed in Greece, actually.
Okay.
They couldn't get the rights or the permission, but yeah.
But man, I remember sitting there for a minute and going, wow, this feels real. This feels like they're in the middle of something actually happening. So props to them for that kind of crowd control and that ability to make something feel so real. That was great. Towards the end in Vegas, the last location, there was some car chase things. The bad guy steals one of the big police tanks, basically, and starts plowing through traffic. And that was eye-popping. Like, it was kind of crazy. I couldn't believe I was seeing it. That was one of the few moments where I felt kind of taken back to the old Bournes, which seemed to have one of those moments every 20 minutes. And I liked that. I enjoyed that. So, and the last thing I enjoyed, I've always liked the Bournes because they're kind of like a travel log. and you get to go and see what a payphone looks like in Berlin, or a hotel looks like in Egypt, and they don't really build a lot of sets. They film these things in real places, and I felt like they captured that this time too. There's this real kind of travel log. We get to go see these everyday places around the world. But that's about where my positives end in those three things.
I'd like to add to that the same positives. I thought Greece was fantastic, or the portrayal of Greece. You're right. It was just like it was a real protest going on, and I thought that was great. I do have some flaws with that, but we can talk to that just a little later. The car chase scene was probably my third favorite thing in Vegas. It was really over the top, really, really great and grand. The question that was just begging, throughout the whole thing is, why are the cops shooting at Bourne, chasing the guy that's plowing through everyone with the SWAT team? Could it be that this vehicle has been, hijacked? Very late in the game, they shoot out Jason's window, and I'm just like, that was a pretty obvious thing to me. Like, it just didn't really seem to, jive. But, but for the most part, the Vegas scene was incredible. I really liked Alicia Vikander's role. Should we get towards into the end?
Do it.
I mean, we
Let's
can
just
jump
in.
wherever we want. But
yeah, go for it.
I really loved Alicia Vikander through the whole thing. Until the ending, okay? I was not pleased with the ending. I think that they should have given... I'm all for one that doesn't have, like, a Hollywood ending, you know what I'm saying? But I think that in this case, it would have been good just to leave it alone with Alicia Vikander, talking with Matt, not knowing 100% whether, she's good or not. But having hope that she is good. And where they just threw that out the window, it just seems... I don't know, I feel like it would have been better if it would have left with her helping Bourne, cover up whatever took place, with the CIA director and stuff, and then just left it. I don't know. What are your thoughts on the ending?
Well, to be totally honest, by the time I got to the end, I was pretty out of the experience, but I will say that I did not like Alicia Vikander's turning out to be just this underhanded kind of evil. I didn't buy that from her. Mm-hmm. I thought she's a great actress. I think she's really good, but I didn't feel like she had a lot to do here. It felt, I don't know, she felt kind of wasted. I mean, if she's you got this up-and-coming star, she just won an Oscar, she's the hottest thing since sliced bread, and she was just kind of like your previous sympathetic CIA girls that they killed off earlier in the movie. Mm-hmm. But then they didn't do a lot with her, and they felt like, oh, the new thing is she's going to be evil. But that didn't really work for me either. It felt disingenuous, and usually when you go
too late too.
Yeah,
if it was going to be evil. It was too late in the movie. I mean, I don't know. And
you've got to at least plant seeds for it. I didn't feel like that was planted ahead of time at all.
If anything, all of her emotions, all of her facial expressions, everything was saying she is a good person. Yeah. Through the whole movie, and then at the end, you're just slapped in the face. Oh, she's a dirtbag. Like everyone else.
Well, and that's the thing.
No one better than Tommy Lee Jones' character.
Exactly. In some ways worse, because she's trying to play people. And then, so by the end of the movie, in this Bourne universe, no one is good anymore. Like, if you think about the previous films, he had his girlfriend, right, his German girlfriend, and then when he lost her, he got Joan Allen in the CIA, who was a sympathetic ear, and who was trying to do the right thing. And then in the third film, you had Joan Allen again, and then Julia Stiles came back. And so you always had these sympathetic co-conspirators, if you will, that kept the world alive with hope. At the end of this one, Bourne's out in the cold, and everybody's either dead or horribly corrupt. And that's how it is. And they play the Happy Moby music again. And, it's like, what? Like, no, I'm not happy. This is terrible.
And the Bourne at the very end, he just kills a bystander just out of the blue, and that totally just threw me off guard. I was like, wait, Because if anything, he's kind of on this road of redemption. You know, throughout these films, he's kind of finding out who he is and kind of becoming. You know, he's always been a patriot, but it just seemed really out of character for him to just kill someone so indiscriminately. You know.
Well, and here's the thing. Okay, we'll get into this. Why not? While we're talking about this, let's actually stay with bad guys for a second. My biggest problem with the movie. Tommy Lee Jones's character was not my biggest problem, although I didn't really like him, which is hard for me to say because I love Tommy Lee Jones, but he was just the evil, mustache-twirling villain. Like, there's nothing there. There was nothing...
So his character or his performance? Which didn't you
His
like?
character. I mean,
or both?
I didn't mind his performance, I guess. Like, nobody seemed like they were phoning anything in. They seemed like they were into it, but writing-wise, I didn't feel like there was anything there. You know, he was just... the evil villain, and we never got really any kind of reasons for it. Now, the Jason Bourne films are not about reasons, really, for a lot of people. They're really quick and they're lean, but you always got something. You always got a little taste of something. And that leads me to my biggest problem, though, which is the other villain, the French actor. I can't remember his name right now. I've seen him in a bunch of stuff. He was the bad guy in Ocean's 12.
Vincent Cassel, isn't it, or something like that?
Yeah, Vincent Cassel. Yeah, exactly. And I'm not talking about his performance. I'm talking about his character as written on the page. To give a little background to why his character bothers me so much, I have a pet peeve, and I don't know that this is. I think this is a fair pet peeve for people to have because I think it's a bad thing. I don't like when sequels to earlier films try to pull this whole, no, wait, the real bad guy was this person before. You didn't see him, and we didn't talk about him at all, and there was nothing put in there about him. But trust us. He was there. He was just off camera left. And he's the real reason. Spectre was real bad about that. Spider-Man 3 was real bad about that. This is the man that really killed your uncle. All that. It erases any kind of emotion the previous movies brought out. And then it doesn't work for the new movie. So with this, we have this whole new subplot introduced, right, of Jason Bourne's dad, which also coincidentally happens to be the head of the Treadstone program, which is the program that first started him, which seems very coincidental and out of nowhere. And then Vincent Cassel was the one who went and killed his dad, and also is the one that kills Julia Stiles earlier in the movie, so Bourne really wants to kill him. It's this real revenge-thirsty thing. And so I just found that unbelievable, that we've never heard about this, his dad, or being the head of the program, and all the other secret documents that have been released or found through all the previous movies. This never came up. It was never a thing, but yeah, now we're going to talk about it. Oh yeah, and also, Vincent Cassel killed your dad. So like, it just seems so thrown in and so cliche. I just really didn't buy it. And right before they revealed that it was Vincent Cassel's character that killed his dad, I thought, oh no, they're not going to do this, are they? I guessed it, and then all of a sudden, there it was. And I think I rolled my eyes in the theater, which is never a good thing. In marriage or in the theater, you should never be rolling your eyes. So yeah. I didn't buy that. The thing with Julia Stiles at the beginning, again, just felt like rehash. Like, oh wait, no, Bourne's out of the game, so we have to give him a reason to get back in. So let's kill the one person he knows. And in the second film, in Supremacy, it worked because he had been with that girl. They had developed a relationship, but now it just felt like cheap to kill her off to get him back in the thing. And this gets to also the point at the end where you said that Jason Bourne's always been on this quest for redemption, right? He's trying to get away from this lifestyle. But in this one, there's no reason to really hunt down and kill the bad guy, but he just does it. And he does it really, really brutally and snaps his neck, and it was kind of celebrated almost, it seemed like. It seemed totally foreign, like you said, to Jason Bourne's character as previously established. Those things were real deal breakers for me. I did not like them.
That's fair. Were you upset about the actual death of Julia Stiles' character? Did that upset you at all, or
no? And I feel like it should have, but it just it seemed out of nowhere again. And I don't know what her purpose was. I guess she was trying to release documents and be a patriot again. But this is going to sound bad, but Bourne has always been a patriot in a very covert, not outspoken kind of a way. He seems much more interested in just survival. I didn't like that people trying to appeal to his patriotism. It felt cheap too. So I didn't. I don't know. It just wasn't working for me as I was going through it. So
there were whole scenes that seemed, if you're going to use the word cheap, I guess, that felt, and a lot of them dealt with Dewey, the CIA director, where, like, it just seemed like the whole ending, like, you can come back. We're just trying to get you back, and trying to get him back into the fold. It just seemed, first of all, Jason's not that dumb. It just seemed really contrived. The whole scene, where he's like, "Come back with us," and I didn't like that. Like I mentioned in the review, we haven't talked about it in the spoiler show, so I guess we better bring it up again just in case people skipped the review. But the things that I found the most fascinating were like these the social media aspect of it and that very minor subplot. I wanted to know more about that. I think if that would have been woven into the plot more and maybe made more of the movie, where these other flaws and problems that the movie had would have been pushed off a little more, and I don't know.
Well, and as we were talking, I also thought about something else that the greatest sin a sequel can do is make you want to watch the old ones more than the one you're watching. And that is exactly what happened this time. Is I was like, oh my gosh, I really want to watch Supremacy or Ultimatum or Identity, because I also missed the ingenuity and the intelligence of the previous movies. I mean, there's this amazing sequence in Supremacy, for example, where Matt Damon hunts down the CIA lady that's after him, using things that all of us could do if we were smart enough. Like calling numbers and looking for things on hotel desk clerks, and it's all simple stuff that all of us, like I said, if we were smart, could do. It's very ingenious, and that's a hallmark of all the movies, is doing really kind of clever things with whatever he has. It's kind of a low-rent MacGyver in that way, and also fighting with a ballpoint pen or a book or a magazine or blowing up an apartment with a toaster. Those are things that are just really clever and fun. Nothing like that in this movie.
Nope.
There was gadgets, but they were more like James Bond kind of far listening things and ID trackers and stuff, and that's fine, but for me, Bourne has always been about, he doesn't have any resources. He's just got to use his brain, and he would do things that were just so clever. The spycraft, I guess, is what I'm talking about. There was this real sense of spycraft that really pervaded those first three movies that was entirely absent this time. I can't think, maybe you'll correct me, but I can't think of one instance when he did something with an everyday object or an everyday situation and it was clever. I just don't remember that.
Yeah, I don't right offhand either.
So, I
think you're right. I think it does fall short in that aspect, and that's what keeps it interesting. Otherwise, you just have Taken, and no offense to Taken fans out there, but you know what I'm saying? It's just for action's sake.
Yes.
If you lack all of these, more substantial plots and these little intricate, spy. What was the word you used?
Spycraft. Yeah.
Yeah, spycraft. Yeah. It really does, make it a more enjoyable experience, and none of that was there. It was just nonstop, which we get. That's the Bourne universe. I mean, from the very beginning, cinematography has been that way. However, I guess the reason, and I kind of thought about this as I was falling asleep last night after watching the movie, that, give me Sicario any day of the week over a Bourne or a Taken type movie. And I'm not trying to diss them. And the first three, I'm sure when I watch them again, and I do want to watch them again, that my recollection might change. But, there is a superficial kind of face value that you have to take those type of films at that have all this action in it. And I think Sicario had the same suspense and action scene moments, but with a lot of the substance there. And most of that was cinematography and music that really set that stage. I know they're different genres of movies and stuff, but I guess that's kind of more my type of movie, and so I'm not going to rate this as high on my scale as some of the other things, but.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I think the thing that was the hallmark, and I didn't really realize this until, so I guess I should be grateful to Jason Bourne, the film, because I was really emotionally invested in those first 3 movies, and I didn't realize it. I mean, the first one, I was really wrapped up in Jason Bourne figuring out who he was, and something about Matt Damon was very relatable, and I was with him on that. And then the second one, as he's trying to make amends or, atone for the things he's done, again, it was a very I was surprised how emotional that made me feel. I mean, the emotional climax of the second film of Bourne Supremacy is him apologizing to the daughter of one of his victims, or a pair of his victims. And it really works. It's this, obviously we have this nonstop action kind of thing going on, but at its heart, the first film ends with the revelation that he didn't do the mission because he's going to kill this African warlord, and then all of a sudden he sees that on the African warlord's lap is one of his kids. And then a bunch of other his kids are around, and it short-circuits some part of his brainwashing because there's humanity there that won't give up in the face of that brainwashing. And again, just for me, and this is just my experience, maybe people didn't have this, but for me, super emotional. It was very touching. And also there's a scene in the first film where he kills one of the other agents that goes after him, played by Clive Owen, before Clive Owen was Clive Owen. Sure. And there's a moment when they just let their guard down because Clive Owen knows he's going to die, and they just talk about the fact they both get headaches, and the other one says something along the lines of, look at what they make you give, and just again, these really powerful human emotional moments. And that's not just true of one film, it's true in all 3 films for me. And that, once again, was totally absent in this new film because I felt like he'd finally dealt with all that it was done. Mm-hmm. And in the new movie, this Jason Bourne, I do not buy the fact that the Jason Bourne at the end of Ultimatum, who's finally made peace, who's finally figured out his life, is now walking around or driving around, making a living, beating people up. I don't buy that. I don't buy that regression.
It seems a total, a total regression from this road to redemption that we've followed the first three movies. I mean, it totally takes us not just one step, not just 2, but it takes leaps backwards in his emotional journey through this redemptive process, and it rehashes old things that have been settled and that don't need to be brought up again, and that his character is beyond that and should be above just killing an innocent bystander in the middle of the street. We don't get that towards the end of the last movies, if I remember right. Is that right, Cody? I don't remember specifically, but...
No, and I just... Like I said, I totally agree with what you're saying there. He's the Jason Bourne. He's kind of a version of Jason Bourne that we've seen much, much earlier. And this guy has progressed. This guy has grown. And it was so subtle in the previous films that I didn't really realize it until it was taken away in this one. And I was like, wait. No. We've been through this emotional journey, which again made it feel very cheap when Julia Stiles' character gets killed, because again, that felt like a rehash. It felt like, oh, this is a guy that we need to get back in the field of action, and here we do. We kill somebody to get him back in the field of action. And I didn't like that decision. And if you go back to Vincent Cassel's character again, I know I keep harping on him, but I had serious issues. Another huge issue I had is his problem with Bourne in the film is that when Bourne released all these files, he was exposed in Syria, I believe, and he was kidnapped and tortured for 2 years before they got him out. So now he's all mad at Bourne for being a traitor, I guess to him, I guess to the CIA. But that totally falls apart because later in the film, Vincent Cassel's character, in an effort to get Bourne, starts murdering CIA agents. And I'm like, okay, so your big problem with him is that he's a traitor to either the U.S. or the CIA, and yet you just casually will murder CIA agents, Vegas police, American bystanders. Like, why is... And it was reinforced in the last fight. It says something about you're a traitor, it's in your DNA. Like, so I don't understand how this guy thinks that Bourne's the ultimate traitor for revealing government secrets, and then he goes around killing all kinds of Americans and government personnel, and that's not being a traitor? It doesn't make any sense. You know? I had problems with that as I was watching. I was like, this makes no sense.
Yeah.
I'm ranting.
So,
sorry.
No, you're good. I wanted to touch on a couple of more general, not necessarily, plot points to the movie or anything like that, but it does kind of seem, as a whole, kind of a little bit of a money grab. Like,
yes.
Bourne Legacy did not do as well as expected. I don't know if their intention was to reboot it. I never saw it, but if he was going to kind of like, he's going to be new Bourne,
I don't know.
He does have a sequel coming out in 2018. I heard.
Oh, really?
So
good.
They're not abandoning that plot at all, but altogether. But it just kind of seems like they did it to try to recover the franchise because the Legacy failed a little bit or floundered a little bit, and it seems a little bit. And I know we're not a political podcast, and I'm not going to talk politics at all. But I did have one question because it's in the headlines, and I think it's a legitimate point to talk about. And given the fact that Matt Damon did not do the Bourne Conspiracy video game because of the violence, and recently he came out with a statement saying all guns should be taken away. And I'm paraphrasing, and maybe I'm exaggerating. I don't know. There was some gun control statement that he came out that people were upset about. So how do you think this movie plays into that? I mean, he turned down the game because the first-person shooter violence, but he comes back to this very, robotic, killer. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, it seems weird to me.
What was the motives of this movie?
Well, and you bring up the political perspective. Let me go to the artistic perspective for a second, because at the end of Ultimatum, both Paul Greengrass and Matt Damon, I'd have to look this up, but I swear I remember reading that neither one of them was interested in doing another one. They said, we've told our story.
Yes.
It's done.
Matt Damon says, I will not do another one unless Greengrass comes on with it. He did say that as well, and so it kind of left a little bit of a door, but, we have Paul Greengrass, too.
Well, I got to ask, I want to ask Greengrass, like, what was the overriding reason that what was the narrative or character reason you felt compelled to bring this up? Because it's not coming through to me as an audience. Yeah. And maybe if I read some of the things he talked about, it might change my mind, but I don't think so, because there are key things here that just don't work. And that is a good question. I mean, and Paul Greengrass is, he's not a one-hit wonder, like you were talking about earlier. I mean, he's made some fantastic movies. I mean, United 93 is such a powerful film experience. I actually have a hard time watching it anymore because it recreates September 11th so well that it's difficult to watch. And
they're critically acclaimed. I mean, between that and Captain Phillips, they were both, they were revered quite well with the critics. Am I right in that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and United 93 got one Oscar nomination, I think, maybe one or two, but one of them was Best Director. So for a movie to get, just a Best Director or some sound or something like that nod, that means that the movie itself was very, very well directed, and I totally agree with that. Captain Phillips also, I thought, was a fantastic, again, human, emotional, suspense-filled, this is quality stuff. He is a quality filmmaker, which is why I was excited, because I thought, well, he won't just go for the cash grab. He'll need a reason to get back into this world. And if he did have it, it didn't communicate to me. Sure.
I think we're both in agreement that it doesn't seem like there was enough, substance in this story to resurrect it. It just seems like it, just on the surface, it seems like a money grab. And it would be interesting to see, maybe hear some interviews from the director and see what his intentions were. But I do remember reading that quote that Matt Damon would not do another film unless Greengrass was directing. And he did Green Zone with him, which is a Bourne-like movie, which I haven't seen yet either. But, I don't know how well that stood up. But, it seems like he was kind of done with this. Like, Greengrass was ready to move on to things. And you look at his filmography, and it shows that. It shows that he's progressing as a director, that he's, moving on to things with more substance. And so, it does seem rather...
I just don't get it.
Just a bizarre... I don't get it.
I mean, you never know some of the behind-the-scenes things that happened. I mean, maybe Universal says to him, okay, he's got this pet project he's been wanting to do since he was 12, and they won't give him the money unless you go back and... That has happened before.
Sure.
It's happened more than
absolutely.
once. So this could have been him saying, okay, fine, I'll try to find some way to get through this, and then I'll get my dream project made. I mean, I'm totally speculating. I haven't heard anything like that. But I'm trying to give him the benefit of the doubt for why he would get back into this. Maybe there was studio interference with the actual film. I don't know. But I guess my last point with the Greengrass thing, is I'm still excited for the next Paul Greengrass movie. I'll still go see the next Paul Greengrass movie because I think he's a very talented, very smart guy. Same thing with Matt Damon. I'm excited for whatever he does next. This movie, I may not have liked this movie. It's not going to sit on my shelf next to the other ones. The other ones are going to be by themselves. But that doesn't mean that I have lost faith in this filmmaker or the actors. I'm still excited for where they go from now on. It's just, for whatever reason, this is a misstep.
Okay. And it's safe to say that, so you think Ghostbusters sequel was a lot better than this one, right? I mean, I know they're completely different, but were you more pleased with the reboot of Ghostbusters?
Yes, I was, with also the caveat that Ghostbusters 1 and 2 did not set the bar as high as the Bourne trilogy, the original Bourne trilogy. I mean, by the end of Bourne Ultimatum, that's such a high bar, that's just fantastic. By the end of Ghostbusters 2, why not have another one? Because we've already stepped in the manure once or twice, I mean, it's it's not a big deal, and I really felt like it was a fun continuation of what previously happened. So, as you said in the other review, that one, for me as well as you, will go next to the other ones on my shelf. It's a continuation, but not this one. This one feels like... Well, the good example, the good thing you can say about that is it felt like a Ghostbusters movie. And it had the good qualities of a Ghostbusters film. And while this had some of the qualities of a Jason Bourne film, it lacked the heart and the brain, I felt like, that drove the other three. So it did not really meet the bar of a Jason Bourne film.
That's fair. What else do we have to talk about this? Anything?
Oh, what else was there? I made some notes here. I felt... Okay, yes, one more thing. At least one more. I don't know. Sometimes I get going. Vegas seemed like a weird Bourne location. Like, I know that Bourne can go anywhere in the world, but Vegas seems kind of frivolous. Yeah. I don't know. That kind of took me out of it, too. I was like, Vegas?
Yeah. You know what would have been better? I did like the Vegas chase scene. It was just because there's so much going on. It was cool. There was cool cars smashing everywhere, and but I agree with you. It was cool that he came back to America. That was cool. But it seems like it would have been even cooler to have it set in like Washington D.C. with all these iconic that'd been buildings cool. happening. That it would have been cool, and maybe even in the Langley in the CIA.
That's cool.
He goes to Dewey. It just seems. Yeah, I agree with you. The location was a weird choice, and I think DC would have been even possibly better.
Because look at the locations in the other films, and they're very European films. The first two, and then by the time I get to the third one climaxes in New York City, and it felt.
Oh, so it does take place.
Yeah,
so
it was this.
Remember that?
Well, that was one of the big selling points. I remember when the film came out, is Bourne comes to America. And it was really neat because it felt... That's one of the things that the Bourne films get so right, is this sense of place, this sense of location. And when he came back to New York City, it had all kinds of kind of September 11th surveillance allegory things going on in the background. And it was just a fantastic place. And they really used the location... Because it felt like, narratively, when Bourne shows up in America, he's come home. And that's where he finally discovers his past. And, he goes back to where he was made. And it panics the people that are around because there's always been this sense of distance, right? Like, okay, well, we're chasing Bourne here at Langley, but we're safe here in Langley. And the wonderful thing in Ultimatum was they had the New York field office. So all the people in the building that are chasing Bourne in New York, all of a sudden, he's a mile away. And it was this really cool, panic, oh my gosh, the danger is here.
I do remember that.
Yeah. just fantastic stuff like that. And again,
that was in the trailer too, I think.
Yes,
right? That was a big selling point.
He's actually in the guy's office that's chasing him when they're out there, and he calls him from his office phone. That kind of stuff. That kind of, I don't know, cheekiness, for lack of a better word.
Sure,
it
gets you there.
It's awesome. It's fun. Yeah. It's interesting, and again, it made me. I halfway through this movie for Jason Bourne, I was like, man, I just want to go home and pop in one of the other ones. It'd just be so much better.
Well, it's been great being able to talk about this, because if nothing else that I take away from this Jason Bourne experience from last night is that I do want to revisit the original 3. I have them. I just haven't, it's been years since I've watched them. But I don't want to keep rehashing things that I've talked about, but this is kind of my final statement. Are we kind of wrapping up here?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, so I've talked about the whole rip from the headlines thing. I really, really loved. I think this would have been a better film. I love the whole discussion on net neutrality, on social media tracking people. I loved that. If it would have been more about that, I think it would have been more engaging, 100%. And I don't know. I think it would have been a better movie, and that's what I felt lacking from it. But I agree with everything you've brought up, that there are some major holes in this after talking about it. So,
okay. Well, my final wrap up, I guess, is go back and watch the previous 3. I hope as much as I've talked about the problems I had with Jason Bourne, I hope I've illuminated why I love the first 3 so much. I mean, they are the champagne of action movies. They are the cream of the crop, because they're not just smart, they're also full of real character emotion and fantastically well made. So is it sad that this one doesn't live up? Yes, but it doesn't tarnish the fact that we have basically a perfect action trilogy waiting for anybody. They're at Walmart right now. I was just there on Blu-ray for like $7,
Probably with a free ticket to see the new one, if you so choose.
That's right. So pick those up. And still, also, a pet peeve of mine, do not write off a filmmaker or an actor because you think they made one bad movie.
Absolutely.
Stick with them. They can make good stuff. These are talented, passionate people who really put their heart and soul into things. So give them a break and come back to the next thing and see what they've got in store. So, yeah.
It's good.
For the Valhalla Filmcast, I am Cody Ryrie.
And I'm Brian Hammond.
We will talk to you next time.
The following views, opinions, and commentary are the sole property of the Valhalla Filmcast. Any unauthorized reproduction without prior consent is prohibited. Any incidental music, audio clips, or film trailers are used for the sole purpose of film criticism and commentary as allowed under the Fair Use Act.